What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. 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 I'm going downtown tonight. What's going on?
Chris Connor burst onto the UK Elvis scene in early 2009, and within 12 months he was performing at venues such as the Manchester Apollo and the Harrogate International Centre, backed by the Sweet Inspirations, who were Elvis Presley's original backup singers. Since then, he has toured the world with his show, the world-famous Elvis Show, and this week he is returning to the Northwest. If you're an Elvis fan and appreciate authenticity and respect for the man, then this guy is for you. And he joins us now. Chris, I suppose I better start by asking you, the last 18 months have been a bit of a nightmare for everybody. How's it been for you guys?
It wasn't too bad. We got the furlough. We obviously now we're starting shows again. Done quite a few this year. But yeah, over the period, it was just a case of it was like DIY in the house, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird, wasn't it? Because we all I think everybody sort of like went through the same thing, where at the beginning it was quite nice, everyone was given a free holiday. And then after about a month, we were thinking, aye, what's going on here?
Yeah, but towards the end, it was getting boring. What are we going to do now?
Boring is exactly the word. But the start of 2020, you're looking at a mammoth world tour, and then COVID strikes. Can you? I mean, just from a professional entertainer's point of view, can you explain what that's like?
Well, it's a bit disheartening. I mean, at first, I didn't think for a million years that they'd shut. I don't think anyone did think they could close everything the way they did. Yeah. I thought people would just say, get lost and stay open, but that didn't happen. Yeah. But yeah, all that hard work, we paid for advertising and stuff like that, for flyers, posters, advertising campaigns, and it was all just wasted, really. So yeah, it was really gutting at first, and then you just kind of get used to it and just think, right, well, as soon as it all finishes or starts to open up again, we'll just try and carry on as best we can.
And is this tour now, the tour that you've been doing this year, is it basically just the same tour but rescheduled, or is there new dates put in?
Yeah, a lot of them are dates that we already had booked in from 2 years ago, because we book in quite in advance. Some are rescheduled dates. But yeah, it's just kind of trying to carry on as where we left off. I mean, it's not quite the same, because obviously at first there was social distancing, and you can't have too many people in a room, and you weren't allowed to sing, they weren't allowed to dance, they weren't allowed to do anything. So it was like, from doing shows that were packed out, like 1,000, 2,000 seaters packed out, and everybody up dancing and singing, to like nowhere near that amount allowed of the people allowed to be in the venue, and just sat there being quiet. It was really strange.
Do you find it now that it's kind of gone back to how it was, or is there still an element of people being a bit uneasy about joining in?
Certain places, I mean, we've done a few venues that have sold really well, well over 1,000 people there, and they seem more like the old days. The last few that we did, obviously, they've relaxed things like dancing and singing along, but it's not quite the same. Hopefully it'll go back to the way it was. Yeah. I think a lot of people are still worried about being sat in the room, full of strangers, but I think maybe the news might have worried people a bit more than what they should have done. So, I mean, it is serious. But I think, people worry too much.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. I think you actually are right. We went to a local theatre the other day, and there was a reggae show on. And I saw the same show in February, just before lockdown. And it was it just had a completely different atmosphere to it. It was very quite subdued. I mean, there was points where people got up and had a dance, but I know what you mean. But do you think? I was going to ask you how, as an Elvis, do you describe yourself as an Elvis impersonator, or how do you describe yourself?
Not so much as an impersonator, like a tribute, like an actor. Obviously, I don't think of Elvis after the shows. I'm just me. obviously when I'm on stage, you want to try and portray Elvis as best you can, so people think they're watching Elvis. So yeah, I'd say like a tribute or an actor more than an impersonator. I think impersonator was used years ago when people would walk around the streets, in a jumpsuit and try and convince people they were Elvis.
Yeah. I think there was quite a lot of Elvis impersonators, and some of them were evidently better than others. And you've been described on numerous occasions as the greatest Elvis tribute in the world. That must be just off the scale of you couldn't ask for better than that, literally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to. There's like 1,000,001 competitions around the world to find out who the best is on the day and all this. I just stay away from things like that. But I've just thought, put all your efforts into your performance, into the show, get it to look as close to what Elvis had as possible. And if people like you, they'll come. If they don't, you've got to move on and try something else. But
yeah.
it worked out well. Everybody enjoys it. They have a great night. Try and cram as many hits in as we can. And, we'll try and recreate Elvis's humour, which is, Elvis never took himself seriously. He used to laugh and joke and mess around on stage and stuff, and we're trying to copy that.
But right at the beginning, were you always an Elvis fan, or was there a point where someone said, "You actually sound like him. You should do this"?
Well, I liked Elvis. I liked all kinds of artists growing up as a kid. The Rolling Stones. I used to listen to my dad's LPs. My uncle was in bands, and I used to listen to him playing like rock and roll songs and modern stuff, Sting, stuff like that,
yeah.
Police. But there was something about Elvis that I liked, and then it was getting up to doing the odd song on a karaoke. I thought I'd do an Elvis song, and it kind of went from there. Somebody said, you should do that as a job, and no chance. I couldn't stand in front of people, but I ended up getting talked into it, and I did it. And within, I think it was a few months of me starting, I was in a small theatre show, and it just grew from there. Now we do everything on our own and try and do everything as close to what you see on Elvis DVDs or videos as best we can.
Yeah, and it's a 2-hour spectacle, really. I mean, I've seen a few of your videos on YouTube, and I mean, it's are the shows are they based on classic Elvis shows, or are they just basically a lot of songs that you like?
Well, I've changed it over the years. I mean, I've done like recreations of Elvis when they did That's the Way It Is, the Aloha from Hawaii, 68 comeback special, and then it was just before lockdown. We changed the show, which was just like Vegas songs, so Elvis from the 70s. That's what I prefer out of all Elvis's different eras, from the 50s and the movies and stuff like that. I think Elvis was at his best in probably from 1968 to about 1975. So we just try and cram in as many like 70s songs as we can.
But I've worked as an actor myself, and I watch you, and I think there's a lot of effort that goes into recreating a live Elvis experience, and you've evidently put the effort in. That's for sure.
Yeah. Because being an Elvis fan, I just thought, what would I want to? If I went to see an Elvis show,
yeah, what
would I want to see? And that is what I'd want to see. I've been to see the Elvis in concert. The real, I know Elvis isn't there, Elvis is on screens, but it's a similar thing, not on a bigger scale as what they've got. We do that many screens. We do use screens, and we have got like a big band, but it's like, well, it's good enough for the real thing, then it's good enough for us.
But Elvis he's still as popular today as he. I mean, maybe not as he ever was, but I mean, he's still very popular today. I mean, what would you? I mean, to put your finger on what it was about him that people still love and loved back in the day. What do you think it is?
I think he was the first of his kind. There was nobody else that sang that way, or definitely nobody that looked that way. There was a hell of a lot of women that like him, and
yeah.
There was blokes as well, even straight blokes who look at him and they've got to admit he was a pretty. A handsome fella. Yeah.
Well, it's one of the old adage that all the blokes want to be him and all the women want to be with him.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's the songs, the way he moved, just charismatic. He looked different to other people. With fashion and stuff, he was he was probably the first to use like the jumpsuits, which were taken from a karate suit, and then you look at other artists around the time, and then they started to copy. I mean, now people probably wouldn't wear things like that on music videos and in concerts, but in that day it was like real cutting edge, brand new stuff that nobody had seen before.
Yeah.
So he was like a leader in everything from fashion, songs, hits, and some of the shows, like being the first person to have a show filmed, and it was beamed across the world, a satellite. He was the first person that they thought of, and he did the Aloha from Hawaii. And you look at that, and now the backdrop there, all the lights, the lighting, and the signs, and that must have been amazing at the time.
Oh God, yeah, and incredibly as well, you yourself have built a huge following all over the world. I mean, that must be extraordinary.
Yeah, it is. From just starting off as local, like around the northwest, and then Great Britain, and then we've gone to Europe, Canada, America, the Middle East, Australia. I never thought it would have gone as far as it did, but I'm glad that it did.
Yeah. And before I let you go, you just touched on it there. You're from the Northwest, and you're about to do 3 shows almost back to back in the Northwest. Bolton on the 13th, that's next Saturday. Oldham on the 11th of December, and Calon as well on the 20th of November. Is it extra special to do a Northwest show for you?
Yeah, it's nice to go back to the places where you started, just to see faces that you might not have seen for a while. And being a local lad, yeah, it's always nice to come home and do gigs, do shows in your local area. Yeah,
fantastic. Chris, it's been a pleasure to speak to you this afternoon. Thanks ever so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Marvellous. And keep up the everything that you do. I mean, you're obviously making a lot of people very, very happy.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope for a few more years as well.
Absolutely. You take care of yourself, mate.
All right, thanks very much for that.
Cheers, man.
Ta-ra. Bye-bye.
Bye. The extraordinary Chris Connor from the world-famous Elvis show will be playing at the Bolton Albert Halls on next Saturday, the 13th of November. And then he'll be going to Calon on the 20th of November, and then Oldham, Queen Elizabeth Hall on the 11th of December. Absolutely fantastic. For more information, go to www.worldfamouselvisshow.com. Brilliant, Matt. Brilliant.
Your town, your station, your voice. Afternoons on Calon FM. Listen online at calon.fm.